You gave me free reins, and so I would like to make this presentation about sharing. Um, it will be about the work being done in the DC region, but it will very much be about how this work could not, like we're a super small team and everybody has their budgets really, really strapped. And we could not be doing this work without the enormous amount of sharing that is being done and the support from the decarbonization community. And I will also point out where the support could be, where shared efforts could be greater and help everybody across the country. Yesterday, you heard from Ramita. She told you about how Electrify DC is influencing the conversation on the grid on a very technical level. And I instead am going to concentrate on the consumer-facing part of what Electrify DC does. And in order to do so, as a co-founder of this organization, I have to take you through my a little bit of my journey. So it was 2020. Like many of us, I could not sleep. I have three kids. They matter the world to me. And I was looking around, and there were a lot of people working on commercial building, a lot of people working on multifamily buildings. No one really seemed to want to go near single family homes because they're all, individual snowflakes and incredibly complex. You have so many decision makers. So um, in DC, in the DC region, tackling this issue means net zeroing approximately 1 million homes like this one. There is very little new construction, so it's all about retrofitting. And so I thought, okay, I'm gonna buy me one. And we bought this. Our previous home was too small, so we had to move. 100 years old, all gas appliances, obsolete mechanical systems, and all windows past their useful lives. Perfect. Um, this wasn't my first rodeo, and yet it was a total shit show. So I had very capable HVAC installers who had never seen some of the technology that I was trying to put into this home, and we're having a lot of trouble understanding what was inside the envelope, outside of the envelope. Turns out carpenters and airtight membranes really do not get along. And all the instructions, none of the instructions were in Spanish. And the majority of our workforce here in DC, of our construction workforce, is Spanish speaking. It's crass generalization, but it meant that I had to spend evenings translating instruction manuals. I did manage to bring my home to up to net zero standards, and I'd like to give a shout out to Ed May and Building Type and the entire Passive House community for having been such a huge help. But it nearly did cost me my marriage, and there has got to be a better way of doing this. Um, but what are the options? And so this is outdated. This is April of 2025. It's the climate backtracker that you might be familiar with out of Columbia School of Law. Turns out that even the best efforts, and I have to give a shout out to the Beyond Gas group here, who is doing phenomenal work on policy and legislation. And that is my jam. Policy is my background, policy and advocacy. But I quickly realized that whatever policy is implemented can be undone. And I wanted to work on what cannot be undone, like a heat pump water heater in a basement, try and doing that. And so I thought, try to think more holistically about what cannot be undone. And I think that what cannot be undone is this. I don't think that our kids are ever gonna go back to finding this acceptable. So panel was discussing how do we create lasting change and and to me, it's like, how do we make these choices so unpalatable? How do we make it so obvious that these clean energy products are better, are simply better, and everything else is just so last year? And so this requires an enormous amount of, as the work that most of you do is in consumer education, essentially. So we thought, okay, jackpot, strategic insight. We are going to start with realtors because they fancy themselves trendsetters. They're really trusted community advisors for the most part. And also strategically in DC alone, there are 10,000 homes transacted in a year. And so if we were to electrify or decarbonize all of them in subsequent years, we would be meeting our net zero targets. So there's also a huge sort of opportunity cost of not acting at this specific window. And so we went all in. We had realtors from all the brokerages in the DC area. We came up with a fantastic program, really solid. We had another shout out to Earth Advantage for sharing all of their expertise with us and helping us come up with a 101 webinar for realtors. And it turns out no one wants to fund a program for realtors. They're considered to be programs that only benefit wealthier individuals, including realtors. Realtors are not, flavor of the month in many circles, and it just couldn't be done. Or if anybody knows who wants to fund a realtor program, please let me know in the chat. So we thought we'd go broader. We again, huge shout out to Electrify PDX. Electrify Portland had put on what I think was the first large scale healthy homes event, like decarbonization electrification event. And they essentially handed over their entire Google Drive. It was ours. Like we could ask them any questions, we could use whatever they had used. And this is what enabled a small and scrappy team to put together an event that is seeing growing numbers of people and from all across the region, and that has an incredible reach on beyond the physical reach of the people that come there, and that most importantly leaves almost all attendees in a place where they know what they're going to do. They have a plan, and they walk out of Catholic University and start doing things. However, once a year is not enough, and people that live sort of in the outer parts of the DC region cannot easily get there. So, what do we do? We started with a more distributed approach. This concept of demonstration homes is not a novelty. Visit a heat pump from the UK. There's a ton of programs out there like that. We think we've built something that is really cool. We've received funding from a number of jurisdictions and from Oak Hill Fund to do this work more across all sorts of communities. And I'd be happy to go into this more. The problem is that it's not fast enough, or it's not big enough. It really is effective with those who visit these sites, these demonstration sites, but we cannot do enough of them. So what we figured out is that we needed to team pool our resources. And I'm laughing because we meet monthly. The Electrify DMV network is a working group of like this one, like NBEN, like the National Building Electrification Network, like a ton of other similar efforts throughout the region. And this is not novel at all, but it's really, really effective. We can share whether someone has a green business program that might be similar to another one, and they can collaborate and not have to reinvent the wheel. There are new programs that one municipality is implementing. We have 24 different municipalities in the DMV region. It's just like so many different building codes and approaches and levels of funding. Like we all need to work together more, and this work has been really important. But I'm looking at you, Sean. Who pays for this work? No one. And we are really lucky because we are the recipients of a grant that comes from the EPA through the Thriving Communities to support in part this program, and that is wonderful. Through this work, we have been able to start thinking about a shared consumer focused resource. So instead of having each one of the 24 municipalities have a consumer facing site and have to update a consumer facing site and have to think about how they build capability for coaching and so on. We just started working on what would it look to pool all of our resources together. And we're not there yet. At the moment, it's still like Howard County wants three of these, and Arlington County wants two of that. And but it's a start. And we are hopeful that we're going to be able to get to a point where we can really have these as a shared resource that will eventually look something like this. And so we have been able, with funding from DC, to start a mini homeowners hub limited to DC. Um, Again, we this none of this would have been possible without Rewiring America sharing all of their user experience learning, everything that they've applied to their sites, everything has been handed over to us on a silver platter. And this is really, really, really wonderful. The other thing that has been invaluable has been Sunstone Strategies because they have made available to us all of their polling, what should be the words on this website, what should not be the words on this website. And if only I had known that Jamie Scar was a LinkedIn message away, I would have reached out to him for help as well. Um, so we're through this, we're offering a menu of we're really doing what Jamie was talking about, which is like we're putting ourselves in the shoes of the homeowner. We're going to be working on renters in the next phase, and we're looking at okay, what are the projects that you might be interested in, um, and how do we capitalize on those that have already started with one of these projects? And this work is very similar to that of the switches on, and we this and the contractor finder tool. And we have been in talks with Building Decarbonization Coalition on sharing resources and doing work together. But our impetus of wanting to do this in a sort of open code kind of way was not where they were at the time. And so as I think about sharing and what would really allow us to not reinvent the wheel, it is things like these. It is how do we an enormous amount of time and effort and funding has gone into creating these platforms that are perfect. And there really needs to be a way for communities around the country to be able to leverage this without having to reinvest from scratch and without being beholden to certain. This work needs to be paid, of course, but it there we are clever enough that we can come up with sort of financial levels of investment that make sense for different communities, and in a way that allows super small teams like those that exist across the nation to be able to build something like this without going crazy. Um, so um, one-stop shops are another very similar. This conversation is related. Obviously, when someone comes to our website, they get connected to the coaches. The first question is, who do I call? So the whole discussion around contractor finder tools is as you've seen in the ranking of the programs that the various jurisdictions want, that is key. And then it comes to even when you've been able to find a contractor, or it comes back to what Jamie was saying about, even if you do have a contractor, or even if you do find your incentive, then, if you don't have someone who's going to help you actually implement the project, you're still going to fall off the radar screen. And so the one-stop shops are really, really, really important. And people have been working on one-stop shops for decades, right? And so if we could, as a community, come together and say, okay, um, these approaches are likely to work best in these places, like how do we cost share, or how do we, and so this is the conversation that we're having with Quit Carbon, is like, how can we adapt this model to the resources that we have, and how can we work together? And Cooper at Quick Carbon is being incredibly generous with his time and with his tools, and I feel that we do have, as a community, um, calling, and if we can come up with a sort of a super partis way of approaching the resources that go into these things, and the needs of the various communities, I think that we could make progress faster. Um, and I will leave you with this because um,
God, it's so gross.
because there is hope that these will be relics of the past.